If you're looking for the perfect fall dessert or a way to use up all your spare apples, this caramel apple blondie cheesecake is perfect. Hi, I'm Lindsay from Life, Love, and Sugar, and today we're making a caramel apple blondie cheesecake. So to get started making the Blondie base, we're going to start with melted butter and brown sugar. And then we're going to combine that together. And then from there we're going to add our vanilla extract. And we've got a full egg and an egg white. We're going to mix all that together until it's well combined. From there, we've got our flour. To that, we'll add our baking soda and baking powder. And then our cinnamon, and then our salt. Combine that quickly. We're gonna add that into our wet ingredients. And then give that a good stir until it all comes together. Things are coming together and they're nice and well combined. And so now we're going to add some chopped apples to the mix. And just stir those in. Now you're ready to bake your blondie. I like to use a springform pan. Since this is going to be a cheesecake, it'll be much easier to take the final cheesecake out of the pan when it's done if you're using a springform pan. I've already got it sprayed with some nonstick baking spray, and we're going to put some parchment paper, circle in the bottom, just to make sure things don't stick. And then we're just going to add our batter. Spread it out evenly into your pan. And now we're ready to pop it into the oven. Now that your blondie is baked for about 30 minutes and it's completely cool, we're going to set that aside while we make our cheesecake filling. You're going to start with your cream cheese. It should be room temperature. You're going to add your sugar. We've got white sugar and brown sugar here. And you're going to set that to go until it's well combined and nice and smooth and creamy. All right, once everything is well combined, you're going to want to add your caramel sauce and some apple pie spice. So this is a caramel sauce recipe from my blog. It's definitely the one I would recommend that you use. It's a nice and easy caramel sauce to make. When it's cold, it firms up nicely. And so since this is a no-bake cheesecake, you want the filling to firm up in the fridge. And if you use a caramel sauce that doesn't firm up when it's cold, you're probably going to get a filling that's too soft and not quite the right consistency. So we'll add that here to our filling. And then we've got a little bit of apple pie spice. All right, once that is all well combined, we're actually going to take that and set that aside. And now we're going to make a little bit of homemade whipped cream that we're going to stir into the filling. We're going to use some heavy whipping cream, powdered sugar, which helps to make it a stable whipped cream. So once you add it to your filling, it's not going to deflate. And whip this on high speed until you get stiff peaks. All right, so it's starting to look pretty thick here. If you aren't familiar with looking for stiff peaks, what you're going to be looking for is if you were to pull your mixer out of it and tip it up this way, it stays in place. So that is a good stiff whipped cream. So to combine the two, I recommend adding about half of the whipped cream, stirring that in until it's pretty well combined, and then adding the other half. All right, that's pretty decently combined, so we'll go ahead and add the rest and then finish that up. You want to gently stir, kind of folding the whipped cream into the filling so that you don't deflate the whipped cream. And just keep doing it until you don't see any more streaks of whipped cream. So now it's time to add our filling to the top of our blondie. So I've got our blondie here, it's completely cooled. So let's add this to the top. And then you're just going to spread it into an even layer. I like to use my 9-inch offset spatula. It's one of my favorite tools. I just think it's the easiest thing to work with. And spread it into a nice even layer. One tip would be when you press it into the sides here to try to make sure you're not creating any air pockets so that when you remove your springform pan, you've got a nice straight edge that doesn't have any gaps. Smooth it out nicely and then pop it in the fridge for a few hours so it can cool and firm up. So after your cheesecake has been in the fridge for a few hours and it seems like it's getting nice and firm, you're going to go ahead and make your apples. I've got some sliced Granny Smith apples here. We're going to add those to our pan. A little lemon juice, some brown sugar, a little bit of cinnamon and nutmeg, and a tablespoon of butter. You want to cook these over about medium heat for about 10 to 15 minutes until they get nice and tender. If you like them a little softer, you can cook them a little longer. If you like them firmer, you can take them off a little sooner. All right, so the apples are looking pretty nice and tender. One way to check and make sure they're tender enough is just a fork test. Just stab it into your apples and make sure they're just kind of fork tender. If you get too much resistance, then you know your apples probably need a little longer to cook. But these are looking pretty good. So once your cheesecake is chilled and firm and your apples have cooled down, you want to grab your cheesecake from the fridge and take it out of the springform pan. So you just want to be a little careful with it. You could maybe jiggle it around a little to help loosen it from the edges of the pan. You're going to open up that springform pan. Just make sure it comes loose from the sides. And now if you need to smooth out any of the edges or anything like that, I like to use my offset spatula. And you can really just kind of come around the edges and just smooth out any imperfections if you'd like to. I'm going to try to leave a little bit of an edge around the outside that doesn't have apples because we're going to add a little bit of cinnamon whipped cream after we've added our apples. Once you're done adding your apples to the top of the cheesecake, we're just going to set this aside and make our cinnamon whipped cream. So to your mixer bowl, you're going to add your heavy whipping cream, your powdered sugar, a little bit of cinnamon, and we're going to let that whip until stiff peaks form. Add the whipped cream to the piping bag. This cheesecake is really one of my favorites. Just is like fall in a cheesecake. It's so delicious. Your guests are sure to love it. I can't wait for you to try it. Head over to lifeloveandsugar.com for the full recipe.